All right, so nobody will come in, Mr. Chairman,
Okay, so all those that were joining us virtually, sorry about that. What I'm gonna do is start the meeting over again. I'm gonna start from the top. And then we'll go right into item 2. So I'll open up this meeting of the Maynard Planning Board. Today, the date is October 24th, 2023, and the time is 7:18 p.m. This meeting is being held virtually. Hybrid format, which means that members of the public and the board can join virtually through the Zoom link or here in Town Hall. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. And again, everyone, sorry for the delays. I think we can get this started. So we'll open up the public hearing for 2 to 6 Powder Mill Road. This is for the 2 Powder Mill LLC for a site plan and special permit review in the downtown overlay district. Thanks, guys, for being here tonight. Thanks for joining us. Bill, would you mind bringing up that agenda one more time?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we also hold all our connections. I think if you give me a minute.
That's okay. We'll bring it up later. So for tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Bill for a quick introduction on the project, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation. Afterwards, I'd like to check on the status of internal review of the different departments in Maynard, and then the status of peer review. And then we'll turn it to the board for comments, and then we'll finish with public comments tonight. So that's the meeting agenda. So Bill, when you're ready.
Here's some more people.
Let's get this open first, Bill.
Okay.
Don't worry about those folks. Are we sharing screens?
We're not.
Okay, can you share screen?
I'm going, look at again.
Yep. And then I believe your team has a presentation that you would like to give. Is that a PowerPoint presentation?
Bill, what did Chris convert it to for you?
Yeah, it's PowerPoint, it's ready, queued up, and ready to go.
Okay. So Bill, you want to give an introduction to this and cover what the planning board's roles and responsibilities are?
Yeah.
Are we not gonna let anybody else into a meeting?
Yes, thank you. Can you go back to the waiting room
I can.
and we'll see who's trying to log on.
They got the English. Okay, Shelley, you sorry. One wall, sorry. Good gold medal.
Yeah. he's
Yeah.
the-
Okay. All right, that's the agenda.
Again, Bill, if you want to just cover what the planning board's role and responsibilities on this.
So this is an application for a special permit and a site plan, at 2 to 6 Powder Mill Road. It's going to be, it's proposed under the downtown overlay district. Zoning, so that requires, a number of, special permits and procedures to go through. So what the board is going to be looking at, in addition to site plan review, it's, the applicant requested several special permits. One is going to be for mixed use with more than 6 dwelling units. The second special permit is requiring or requesting a reduced lot area of 800 square feet per residential unit. With the development agreement as part of that, so not connected with this process, or not part of this process. The third is for reduction in parking spaces. And what the board is going to do is hear the all the information, take the information, and ultimately we'll go through the bylaws, and the applicant will demonstrate consistency or how they believe they meet consistency with all these requirements. This also is subject to design review is under the zoning bylaws, and we have as I said, there's a separate a number of separate procedures that the applicants are going through. Last night, they required a variance from the zoning board of appeals, which was granted to allow greater than an area greater than 25% of the building footprint to utilize parking under structure. They're also, I believe, in Conservation Commission review or in the early stages of it. Also the applicants have met with the Affordable Housing Trust, which will also be not connected with the issuances permit, but it will be part of the process and will be required as part of the authorization. So those are all in process as of now. And with that, I think we have a presentation queued up by the applicant, and we also have town council Lisa Mead on the Zoom, and we have a number of the applicant's development team on the Zoom as well. So we will probably, hopefully we don't have any more problems with Zoom.
All right, thanks, Bill. For the applicant, I know Mark Bobrowski, you're going to speak on their behalf to start. Would you mind just introducing yourself and the team that's going to be presenting tonight?
Yes, Mark Bobrowski, my office is in Concord in Damon Mill, and I represent the applicant. With me tonight, making the presentation will be our civil engineer Vito Colonna from Cornerstone. I think everybody is Zoom. Chris Golden from MDLA, our landscape architects. Traffic is Derek Roach, who's from BAI. And I think that's it for tonight. We would have Rob Trillo here, who is our architect, but the peer review on architecture just came in this afternoon at about 3 o'clock. So with your agreement, Mr. Chairman, we've told him that he can start the next meeting, and we don't want to, we've already got enough to do, so we left him off the plate for tonight.
Thank you. Yep, I agree with that.
He's on Zoom. Yeah, he said he might tune in to watch, but he's not going to make a presentation.
All right.
So thank you, Bill. There's the existing site today at the corner of Route 27 and Route 62, Powder Mill Road, and I think it's called Walping, 27. That building is pretty much derelict at this point. You can see that the front of that, however, is a separate building. I believe that the gentleman or the proprietor in question has business with the comic books and other sundries of that sort. So this is the building right on Route 27 and the building right on Route 62 and the alleyway that goes to the river, basically across from the BP station. What we're supposed to do there is to raise the buildings that we own, not the comic book shop, and put instead a brand new building, if you could switch, Bill. And it will look something like that. Again, looking at the lower left slide, you can see the existing store that we're speaking of. And then there's a view of the new buildings that are proposed. The one on the bottom right is looking at it up Powder Mill, and the corner turn down to Route 27. I think we have another slide that shows the more. Yes, that'll be a bird's eye view of the building that you can see there. And again, the existing building that's not going anywhere is right in the front corner on the left-hand side, and you get an overview of the parking. There's I believe there's I'm trying to remember, 21 spaces in the, what's the count? I don't remember from last night. There's 45 total parking spaces, and I believe, roughly half of them are on the building. It came out to, instead of being 25%, it came out to 51 and change. And the CBA has built the granted variance for that last evening. We don't have it written up yet, but the vote was unanimous, and I think we can consider it filed. So, thanks to Bill and to Green for a quick peer review. I like the format that they used. They gave us an Excel spreadsheet and they gave us room to respond. During the course of the evening, we'll be going through our responses. I realize that this is our first meeting. We're not pretending that we're going to close the public hearing tonight. When I turn it over to my team, Vito Colonna first, he'll give you a basic site overview and he'll give you more detail than I just did. And then he'll run through the comments that he needed to make in the Excel spreadsheet on behalf of the civil engineering. But there are 55 of them, so he's going to hit the highlights and he's not going to go into great detail. I've asked my team to divide it up into 3 possible responses. 1, we're good, I'll get it on the next iteration. Number 2, we're not good, we'll talk about it some more. Or number 3, we've got questions and we need some answers.
I think that's a very fine way to approach.
Yeah.
I think this time is useful. If you need any feedback from the board on certain items, that way we can get feedback. I don't want to get bogged down in the details of things that can be, or that particularly technical details that can be worked out between technical experts.
And I thank Bill and Green for being willing to meet with our team whenever they need to talk about any intermediaries so that this job can move along. We know that there's a lot to do. There are 120 comments in the peer review, and that's not counting the architectural comments that came today, which I think totals about another 15 or 20. So there's a lot of work to be done here, and I think that will expedite the process greatly. So Bill, if you could go to the next. Right, I'll go a little higher. I believe that these are past projects of the Carr family, the applicants, the managers behind the applicant. Those are projects that are in Natick. You can see that the buildings that we're proposing look roughly similar. And then there's another slide for Wellesley, I think. You can go down again, Bill. There's the Wellesley project. So this is in keeping with work that they've done before. They know how to do it. And I think that this is an exciting project for this particular corner. As I said last night to the zoning board of appeals, this is the other bookend for the McDonald property. When you come into town from the west, there's the McDonald property at the old furniture store. When you come into town from the east, there's this building right at the corner, the most important corner as you come into town from this direction. So it'll be a nice statement that you turn right into downtown and then drive through out the back door on Route 62. What do you have next, Bill? Okay, so now I think we can, this is the proposed site plan. So Vito Colonna is our project engineer. I hope he can hear me and that he's ready to participate.
Yep, I'm ready to go. It's Vito Colonna with Cornerstone Engineering, with a civil engineer for the project. And, Mark gave a great overview of the project. I'll just get into a little bit more detail. Just go over first the existing conditions plan, which is right in front of you now. So essentially this site is contained 3 parcels.
Vito.
Yep.
Sorry, 1 second. Bill, can you, and I just want to make sure that we can see the screen really well. Bill, can you zoom in so we can capture this a little better for all the planning board members?
We have a large copy here.
And Vito, please help direct this, navigation of these slides. We can obviously have to run it from here. I'm sorry, Vito, go ahead.
No problem at all. So essentially it's 3 parcels, 3 assessors parcels. It totals 31,400 square feet. And it's bounded on the back by the Assabet River, which you can see at the top of the page, bound to the right by a residential dwelling. And then to the south, there's commercial uses. I think it's a BP gas station, Jiffy Lube. To the left, another commercial property with the Dunkin' Donuts and another couple of uses in it. And then on the front corner, it's the bottom left corner of the page. You can see that other building. That's the one Mark was talking about. That's the Excelsior building that sells memorabilia, comic books, that such a products down there. So you can also see there's a red kind of dash line through the site that represents the floodplain associated with the Assabet River. And that kind of encompasses the right-hand side was that lower parking area. So it floods up into that lower area and then just along the river down in the back. It's up to elevation 147 if you were looking at any of the plans printed out. And then we also have a couple other kind of odd things on the site that are little restrictions. On the upper left-hand corner near the bridge, there's a MDOT easement. And that's just associated with the installation and then ongoing maintenance, if anything need be for that. There's a 24-inch drain line that comes off of Waltham Street and discharges down by the river. And then there's also a 10-foot wide right-of-way easement that runs across the property. And that's just an internal easement. It was between the parcels themselves when they were under different ownerships. Now that it would become one parcel, that right-of-way really essentially goes away since it's all under one, or will be under one ownership and one parcel once the project moves forward. We can go to the next slide now. And now those ones that are bigger scale, so you can actually zoom out a little bit. So essentially what the plan would be is to remove the two structures on site and redevelop the site itself. And before it was almost entirely impervious or disturbed. And on this slide, you can see there's a little bit more green area up to the kind of the north of the page. So we're trying to pull the development a little bit away from the river, give some of that naturalized buffer back, but also still maximize the site and get the proposed use in yield that's needed for the project. So we have on the first floor, we have a at-grade commercial space that's fronting on Powder Mill Road. That's shown in that hatched area. And then in the rear side, it's a drive-under parking. So it's under the building at that point. So you'd essentially drive through the site from Powder Mill to Waltham, or from Waltham to Powder Mill. There's open parking on the right, and then you go under the building and exit back out onto Waltham Street. The site right now does drop down. There's some topography change. And so under the proposed development would essentially raise that up to be level with the roadway grade. There's a little drop off on the road from the parking just to get drainage, but it's essentially level with the road. So you drive in, drive out, all in the same elevation. They provided 45 parking spaces, and that's we can get into that later with the traffic consultant, but that's sufficient for their their proposed use on the site, where they have different timings of residential use versus commercial use, and they feel that that's sufficient parking for the proposed use. There's 2 handicap spaces provided. I know under the comments we do have to provide one more, so we'll get those on the updated plans. We also provided some site access for the public to the north of the page. This is kind of that gray hatched area. That's going to be a proposed walkway off of Waltham Street, and then a patio that's raised up. And then it's kind of perched up so you can view over the Assabet River at that point. The wall on the backside is, I believe it's 5 or 6 feet in height at that point. So you'd be kind of sitting up a little bit and be able to view out onto the river at that point. As far as the utilities and drainage go, I'll just go over them very quickly. We're going to bring in new water service and a hydrant for fire protection off of Powder Mill Road. We're proposing a sewer connection out into Waltham Street. And there's two sewer connections, one to Waltham and one to Powder Mill. One would be your garage drain, and one would be the domestic sewer. We have gas service readily available in Powder Mill. Bring that in for the proposed use. And then for drainage, this is going to be a vast improvement as far as drainage goes. There's a reduction in impervious area by about 5,000 square feet. So we're reducing all of our stormwater flows. And the new system will be fully compliant with all of the DEP stormwater standards and the Maynard stormwater bylaw. We're providing treatment far in excess of the minimum requirements, nutrient removal with a phosphorus removal, and also a little bit of groundwater recharge where there isn't any today. The other component of the stormwater system is actually the flood storage system. So as I said, there was a floodplain on the site, and we are filling that to get the proposed parking area. So what we've shown is an underground flood storage system, and it's underneath the parking area on the right-hand side of the page. It's really not too visible on the plans until if you looked close, but it's underground. It's a concrete vault essentially, and they would take that floodwater as it rose up and would provide an equivalent volume, actually a little bit increase in storage volume, and then allow that to dissipate as the floodwaters recede. So it would function as it does today in the existing conditions, except it would all be placed underground where it really wouldn't be seen or causing any issues with the proposed development. And it would function the same for all the abutting properties. It wouldn't back up anything onto any of the abutters or any downstream issues. And I think the only other comment was just to note about the review comments. And there was quite a few of them related to the civil plans. But I didn't see any that I didn't have any issue with, as far as most of them were just adding plan content details to the plan. You know, a little bit more information about the utilities, stormwater, that type of information. I didn't know if it was necessary to actually go through every single one of them, just for the fact that I didn't really see any issue with adding all the information they requested to the plans themselves. So I didn't know if anything stood out specifically to any of the board members, but I didn't have any issues with just compliance with you know, those items under the review. I think that's really it from our end, and I can kind of hand it back over to Mark for the next part of the presentation.
Would you like to take civil questions now, or?
May I ask Vito a couple questions here, just big picture? It's just so I understand, Vito, what I heard was that regarding the peer review comments, and on the left column, it starts with comment 7, which begins the civil plans, and that continues on for a couple pages. So your perspective is that those series of comments, number 7 to number 57, I guess, that they seem minor or moderate, and that for the most part they seem easy to comply with.
Right.
Was there any specific comments that you wanted to bring up for discussion that this board could help with?
Not specifically. I know that there was a comment about the lot areas, and I think we had already talked about that with the planning department previously. There was a discrepancy between the assessor's information versus the plan that we presented. And just, it may come up as a question later, so I might as well go through it. Ours is based on an actual on-the-ground survey. And the old deeds were very vague. Most of the distances and areas were described as more or less and approximate in the deeds. So the areas that we provided is based on an actual field survey. And those are the areas that we came up with based on that. So that was just one of the discrepancies between, you know, it's come up a few times in discussion. I just figured I'd just go over that quickly. And then other than that, I really didn't have much as far as questions that I needed clarification on. You know, I think everything was, you know, very clear, well written, and, you know, I didn't really see any issues.
Mark, if it's all right with you, I think this would be a good time to introduce our peer review engineer and just get his feedback.
Sure.
And I'm happy to go through this topic by topic if that works for you. Okay. Tim Thorne, would you mind introducing yourself for everyone?
I'm Tim Thorne, I'm a project manager at Green International, and specialize in civil site design.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah.
On this topic of civil plans, what Vito says, does that match your perspective that generally these are minor comments and can be easily figured out?
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying.
Okay.
It's more just adding more detail to the plan, making sure that, you know, it's meeting all the different regulations that are outlined in the Maynard regulations. And I didn't see any major issues. So could be pretty straightforward.
Were there any of your feedback that you thought would be helpful to bring up that, you know, maybe nuanced or need clarification at this time, or do you want to wait till we go through all this first?
I mean, if you.
And not to put you on the spot, I'm just, what I'm trying to do is just give you an opportunity to bring up something that you thought would be helpful to discuss in a planning board session.
At this moment, I don't think we need anything to discuss
Okay.
right now until we see the responses and revised materials, then we might have more to talk about.
Okay. Jim, I may call on you for some of these other topics, but that's all I wanted for the time right now, Mark. That's okay.
Any other questions, from any other board members?
Regarding the civil plans, we're trying to do this publicly, guys. Did you guys catch what was being described? Yeah. Good about, okay. Guys, what do you think?
I got a few.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the retaining wall between the abutting property? Can you describe what it looks like and why it's needed and what's going on in that little alley?
Sure. So, if we get the plans back up, but in the kind of lower
Yeah.
left-hand part of the page, there was I think that's the part you're talking about with the abutter, the Alexier, right in there. So right now that section of the existing site drops down, and yep, there we go. So in that kind of left-hand corner in there, right now that drops down off the street about, roughly about 6 feet. And we'll have to raise that grade up. So that retaining wall along that kind of L-shaped retaining wall is just to raise that grade up along the building to retain the grade up so that the parking can be there. And then we can have access on that side of the building at grade. We did provide drainage in there because that is somewhere where water would collect. And we were sensitive to that, so we put a drain, it's actually a head wall in that retaining wall to collect and convey all the stormwater through, so there wouldn't be any backups or issues down that point.
Was your question, Bill Crenshaw, on the retaining wall on the left side of the figure?
The one in the corner around
Yeah.
the other thing. So, yeah, I get it now. So they're raising this site, but the other site stays where it is. So.
Yep.
Got a little wall instead of that weird little alley.
Mhm.
And-
And I don't have a material spec on it yet. We could try to figure that out if that's something that, the board wants to see is is specific materials of the walls. We could try to nail that down if that's something you want to see.
And can you just cover the elevations one more time from the top left to the bottom right? What those would look like?
Sure. So if we're looking at kind of the
Just for the retaining wall that you were talking about,
Yep,
what-
so at the low point, set kind of to the inside of the L, I guess, there's a low point of elevation 150. In the top of the wall itself would be 154.5, so it'd be 4.5 feet tall at the highest point. And then at the two corners by Waltham and Powder Mill would taper down to 0.
That's all about that retaining wall around the game store.
Is there a different plan that shows the work being done in the right of way, sidewalks and stuff, or? Is that on a different sheet and then somebody else is talking about that?
We just showed where the two driveway entrances would enter into the two right-of-ways. But it was asked, I think, to expand the sidewalk, remove and replace to the entire frontage. So we would expand that work on the upcoming plans. But these ones just show the two curb cuts and how we'd do an accessible entrance across those two driveway curb cuts.
I believe the development agreement, which is in draft, has a mention of sidewalks along the two frontages and replacement of the ramps at all corners of that in.
But that will all be in the updated plans that we see at next meeting. Is that the deal?
That's right.
As long as what? So you're gonna add dimensions. Is there gonna be a list of relief requests? Is that somewhere?
A waiver question.
Well, parking relief, I think is the term we use, but there are other ones. I mean, we have that list yet, or is that
That's one of the special permits that we applied for.
different issue?
Bill Nemser, can you elaborate on what Bill Crenshaw is getting at?
Typically when we're asked to grant I think what you're talking about is waivers. Granted, waivers are gonna be requested, and typically there's a list that we have that we kind of work off of it. It took,
Right, because like, you
Normally-
know, oh, the setback isn't quite right and the parking's too close to the road or
Right.
the space is a little too short or whatever.
right.
But we don't have that yet, but we'll get that next time.
Well, yes, and I think, well, anything that's identified will add to it as well. One thing to remember is with the downtown overlay district, you know, a lot of the dimensional requirements are minimal in certain areas, but yeah, absolutely, we'll get away for relief and.
I think Bill Crenshaw's other point is that it's always helpful to write these down as they come up through our conversation, so we don't lose track of them as well. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, we can't grant it if it wasn't requested.
Right. Right. Do you have other questions, Bill?
I got lots of questions, but
Yeah.
I don't know that we want to in the detail until we see more detail on these plans. Yeah,
When. So is now the time to talk about parking spaces, or could we do that under traffic
I
probably?
think it was in the transportation sector.
Okay, all right, well then I'll save those questions. Yeah, any thoughts, questions in civil site plan?
No.
Okay,
when do we talk about the?
good question.
Where did that come? What needs a standalone?
Do you have any thought?
The first draft of the development agreement, which I saw, was called for a pavilion, and now it's a patio. I don't know, Vito, do you have any specific things to say about that?
No, I know there was a size previously noted in the development agreement in the draft. And the patio just shown is it's larger than that size previously. I know there was discussion about the pavilion before, and there was some issues with the structure being close to the river at the time. But we thought that, you know, just with the site design here, the patio seemed to fit with the site design a little bit better with the building itself.
Chris, could I provide some additional comments on that?
Is this Julia?
Yes, Julie.
It is. Hi.
Hi, Julia. Yes, could you just introduce yourself first?
Sure. Julia Flannery, the conservation agent and assistant town planner. I'm behind the scenes here. So just quick background. Conservation did not approve the first iteration of plans that came through on this project. You know, because of many concerns, some of which it seems like Vito has addressed. However, we still have not received a application from them, a new notice of intent. So I can't really comment on these plans from that perspective. However, just regarding the pavilion or patio or whatever we want to call it, you know, DEP had some big concerns about that. And so did the Conservation Commission on that aspect of the project. So hoping that, you know, when we get to the conservation aspect, we can review that a little bit more for mitigation. But since they haven't submitted it through conservation, I haven't reviewed it under those parameters.
I get the sense that the patio design may change potentially. That it's not fully set in stone the same way sort of other elements are.
Yeah, and it's also subject to just in the development agreement, which is in draft form.
Right.
So Chris, my big picture is that we should have a discussion of whether the patio is desirable compared to the other options that are required under the bonus density rules. One of which is and so I don't know when we're gonna do that, that's all.
We've been, and we can cover this later. We've been looking at that from a development agreement standpoint, and my goal, there's a lot of stakeholders, but my goal would be to bring that DA to the planning board, hopefully next meeting for our review. And it will cover those types of items. I think you can provide more thought on that to Bill. We can also cover it. I would like to get through the plans themselves, but we can cover this at the end of the meeting if that's a good use of our time as well. Does that work?
Yeah, as long as it's a standalone agenda item, because it really shouldn't get mixed up with
Right,
peripheral references to documents that we don't have.
okay. All right. And I think we're good on civil.
You just switch orders.
I think so.
Thanks, Vito.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Chris Golden, who is from MDLA Landscape Architect. And he'll cover both landscape and lighting.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having us. My name is Chris Golden. I'm a project manager with Michael D'Angelo Landscape Architecture. And we were, excuse me, we were responsible for the planting design on this project. I think our rendered plan is on page 40 of this PDF. We can skip around a little bit. Yeah, perfect. So just as a high level overview, given that our site is adjacent to a river, our goal was to use primarily native and naturalized plant material, nothing invasive, and things that are all resistant to, you know, any salt damage that might occur from being near the parking lot. Designed to be to withstand the light conditions. You know, we have some north side of the building that we're planting. We're also using some evergreen trees to buffer the northeast side of the street along to the abutters along Powder Mill. I guess I'll walk around the site real quick. So as I mentioned, we have a evergreen hedge to screen the views from the abutters on Powder Mill. We have some lower screen planting along Powder Mill, mostly perennials there to provide a little bit of a softening of the view of the parking lot, but also not block too many views. And then we have planting along some mostly perennials along the base of the building as a little buffer between the building and the parking lot. Where we have available space, we're providing some green buffering between the comic book shop and the new building. And then along the back, we have on the sloped portions that go down towards the river, we're proposing a native seed mix that's designed with plants that are suitable for maintaining slopes and preventing erosion, as well as a different seed mix in the stormwater basin there as well. We have a number of different flowering trees that we're proposing in that area, trying to frame the view off of the patio towards the river. And like I said, just some good hardy, rugged New England plants to kind of make sure that this site will last and stay green for a long time. And then our lighting plan, I believe, is on the next page. We have a handful of different fixtures that we're using to try and get adequate light levels around the site. On the right-hand side, near the property line pointing towards the parking lot, we have a pair of pole lights. And then the rest of that parking lot is intended to be lit with wall-mounted lights that'll be on the side of the building. Underneath the building, we have, for purposes of this exercise, we have a flush-mounted sconce in the area that's underneath the building, lighting the parking areas. We have a few wall-mounted sconces at the doors along Powder Mill as well at each of the entries. And then there are a few bollards that light the path from the path to get us back to that patio as well. So in terms of comments that we got, I think the landscape ones were generally fine with almost all of them. There was number 61. There was request for an irrigation plan. We hadn't intended to do an irrigation plan for this, mostly just because there's a limited amount of it wouldn't be a very complicated plan. We could provide a spec just to explain, the quality of the products. But the intent is that the entire site would be irrigated with just a drip irrigation to minimize water use. And then number 65 was asking about street trees. But given that the sidewalks are, I think, 6 feet wide, I don't think they'd be wide enough to provide an adequate size plant, as adequate size tree pit for a decent street tree. And there was also a question about on Powder Mill. We had proposed a large shrub at the corner of the building and whether or not we could provide a tree there. But I think the proposed water line connections are going to prevent us from adding a tree in that location, just to avoid any conflicts in the future if there ever needs to be service on that water line. And then on lighting, sorry, I'm kind of burning through this. Does anybody have any questions on landscape while we're still there?
I think we might, Chris, give us a second.
Sure.
All right, I'll start. If that's okay with you, Mark.
I would say thank you.
Thank you. I believe the intent of our comment 61 that references a landscape maintenance plan. I believe the intent of a landscape maintenance plan is just to ensure that the planning board can see that maintenance is being considered. And it can be very, very simple and straightforward. So if the maintenance plan is for drip irrigation and things like that, I think maybe it could just be as simple as a short memo or a short one pager that just describes what that is. Maybe a couple cut sheets or something. I didn't know, Jim, if you had another thought on something simple, but I just wanted, the point is it should be useful so that we see that maintenance is being considered for that.
Yeah, I think you're correct, Steve.
Okay. So Chris, just something simple. I don't think, unless the planning board disagrees, I don't think I'm looking for a full-on irrigation plan. I don't think, from my point of view, that's not necessary unless others thought differently.
No, I'm not interested in irrigation plan, but I don't know what exactly to call it, but to ensure that the buffer plantings stay intact over the years would be nice.
Right. So one focus, Chris, could be to ensure that landscape buffers along, the edges of the properties for butters are maintained. Any other comments on landscaping plans from the board?
I don't know, have the traffic people looked at the landscaping at the entrances to make sure nothing's in the way?
So the question is the landscaping team coordinating with the traffic team to make sure that nothing's in the way and going to get clipped or anything like that?
Or site distance obstruction?
Or site distances, obstructions? I guess that's the Mark and team in general.
Derek is next, so
Okay.
he's our traffic engineer. I'm sure he'll confirm that there's no blockage of view one way or the other.
Okay.
We received one comment about the height of one of the plants near the entrance to Powder Mill, and we're gonna swap that out for a different species of grass.
Would the team be willing to take advice from the tree committee in town, and it's non-binding, but just advice and feedback from the tree committee about plantings and such?
Is this for selection of species?
Yeah, things of that nature.
More the merrier.
And it's not, like I said, it's non-binding, but they look at it more holistically and collectively around town so that it works together, not just with your site, but other locations as well.
I find that to be useful, so good.
Okay, I will notify the tree committee that they're welcome to review the plans and send comments your way.
Great.
Okay.
Chris, one last general question is. Along the river edge, what do we have to show us what is staying and what's being taken away?
That's a good question. Julia, are you still on?
Yep, I'm here.
Would you mind commenting on, we've been through this before. What is the lane of the planning board regarding landscaping around the river? Because I believe conservation is also going to take a look at that. Can you just help us figure out our role? And then Bill, what was your question?
I was just
specifically?
curious. If there's a plan that shows the trees that are staying, the trees that are being taken out, the project. Along the
Yeah,
river.
so they'll need to provide us that when we go through conservation. We'll need a detailed landscape plan. And that's going to include what at this point, what that riverfront buffer looks like. I'm not super sure. So we would need more detail on that. But, Chris, to your point, when it comes to like what lane to kind of be in, I think this is one of those projects where we just kind of need to work simultaneously and work together to ensure that, conservation's being heard. But also, the aesthetics and the planning aspects are also being taken into consideration. Again, it's just really hard to do when we haven't had an application.
Is in the plan sets, is there any information about existing conditions of the landscaping along the river? And I ask that not having a good understanding of what the landscaping is along the river, so if it's not really something that's easily documentable, please forgive me.
Well, I'm gonna rescue Chris because he's filling in for Mike D'Angelo tonight, but Mike probably has that information and we can give it to him.
Yeah, we can double check on the survey if there's anything of significance worth saving. And if there is, some nice trees or something we can hold on to, then we definitely make sure we can hang on to that. Otherwise, we're just gonna reestablish a native bank along the river.
Yeah, there's very minimal native trees along that. There's a lot of invasives, and then on the left-hand side of the page, it's a riprap slope along the bank itself. And then there's a existing retaining wall. There are some trees beyond that, but everything forward of that retaining wall is disturbed and there's no real trees of significance. So the only thing maybe that could be retained is beyond that retaining wall, which an area we're really not working too much in. But we can get a little more detail on the next plan, so.
Does that help?
Yeah. Maybe a line showing the. I'll wait for the exit.
Yeah, so I think the intent from Bill is that it's helpful to see what existing conditions are compared to what's the final conditions.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's more green, less green, the same green,
Right.
different green.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris Golden, did you finish the lighting conversation or did you have anything else to add?
There was questions 73 and 74, was asking, pull it up. About anticipated hours of usage, and lights being lowered at certain times. And I think the plan is just that the exterior lights are going to be on some combination of a timer or a photocell, to maintain, a reasonable amount of power usage, but also, hold a acceptable level of safety lighting for the parking areas, all the exterior areas.
Chris, this plan doesn't show the lighting levels. Are they?
That was my question.
Oh, I guess, they are somewhere. Well, maybe something a little more legible.
Chris Alpin, can you discuss the lumens on the east side of the property line? And if there's any spillover to the east?
That's Chris Golden.
Oh, sorry, Chris Golden, sorry, my apologies, Chris Golden. Chris, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the plans we have, it's just very grayed out. It's hard to sort of see.
Yeah.
And Bill, if you could, would you mind zooming in on the right side of that property line?
Yeah, it looks like right now we're showing some minimal spillage over the property line, but the majority of the light is directed at towards the parking lot. The evergreen trees may not have been fully calculated into that number as well. I think they would help with the spill. But
What,
we can work with our lighting consultant and see if we can get those numbers back down to 0 on the east side of the property line as well.
Jim Thorpe, from your perspective, what's typically considered an acceptable amount of lighting spill off property? From a lumen standpoint, do you recall? Or is that not your expertise?
It's not my expertise, so you have to ask my lighting designer.
Yeah, I would say anything, Chris Golden, that we can reduce any type of lighting spill. I think I see a couple numbers above 1 here, I think. But yeah, I would appreciate taking a harder look at that.
Sure.
Do we have cut sheets on all of the lighting apparatus on site?
We have them available. I'm not sure if they're in this presentation, but we can get that information to you guys.
Okay. Jim, can you make sure that your team just looks at it from a consistency standpoint? If we have particular sconce, it's nice to make sure that sconce, is used throughout a certain area. I don't like mismatch type of thing. And just make sure that the lighting spec, the cut sheet is numbered so that when on the lighting plan, we know which light goes to which sort of fixture.
Yep.
I think very helpful.
Hey, Chris, do we have something that would show the existing lighting along the sidewalks? So we can tell if this is making it better or different or.
We don't at the moment. If we know what the spec on the existing light is, we could include that in the calculations if you'd like.
I can't remember if there's any dark spots along the frontage of the parcel or not.
Yeah.
If there were, it'd be good to make them go away.
Chris Golden, what do you need? Do you need the town to provide the heads and the light posts for those?
Yeah, it would be the fixture, any information you have on the fixture, and then the relative height of the mounting height of that fixture. And then we could get a pretty good idea of what the light's like out there.
Okay. The town may or may not have that information.
Okay. Yeah, and in worst case, we could just include a generic, I think there's just the pretty standard Cobra head fixture on the power lines out there. So worst case, we can just put a generic light in there and, try and gauge it from that.
If we don't have that. Okay. We probably won't have that information, so it may be better to just make some basic assumptions. I think the intent here is to make sure that, we have a project coming in, and if there's a little bit of effort that can be put in to make sure that we don't have a dark spot, particularly for safety, so that would be helpful.
Sure.
Trying to get your program to cooperate, Mark.
Jim, any questions on landscaping or lighting?
I don't have anything.
Okay, how about you, Dan?
I was just, on the landscape, but is there gonna be any common ground for the residences on, or you just having just shrubs on the bottom of the river?
Primarily just landscape buffer at this point.
So is that what the patio is for? It's for the residents just to go on there and enjoy? It's a common space.
It's also a public space.
It's also a public space. Okay.
Any questions on mine?
I think really, it should be lighted very well.
Yeah, should be
So
good.
I mean, you can't really notice on this,
It is difficult to be on this. It's done by the math,
right,
right? So these numbers have little lumens on them, which shows how much light it
right,
should show. You're right, though. It's hard to know until you're actually out there.
right. Feel free.
Feel free, yeah. How about you, Jim? Yeah.
No, I just, the comment about the spill over the property line, and maybe even the height of those poles coming down. That might help with the spillover and just, you know, those sitting on top of the wall. Might just kind of be better hidden if they're lower.
That brings up a good question, Chris.
But I think,
The lights on the right side of the property, are they gonna be mounted on the retaining wall? Or are they mounted from the ground level of the property?
Honestly, I don't know that that's been fully vetted yet. I think we're showing them currently on the back side of the retaining wall, so they'd be up.
Okay, but you have a height on them, I assume?
I believe they're 15 feet high.
That's what it says there too,
yeah,
yeah.
So 15 feet above the retaining wall. Is that what we're hearing?
So that number means. And how high is that retaining wall relative to the parking? Right there. Do you have a sense of that, maybe for Vito?
Could be still here.
Mm,
Oh, I see it.
There we go. Yeah, that retaining wall along that left-hand side of the page. It is, let's see, it's about 6 feet high, actually, right through there.
And how tall is it relative to the parking spaces on the property?
Yeah, so the ground and the abutting property is at about 146. The parking is at 152. So that's a 6-foot grade change. So they're 6 feet higher than the abutting land at the bottom of the wall. And then the wall itself is essentially flush with the parking. It's going to have a little bit of a reveal, but it's essentially flush with the parking.
Okay, so for the lighting scheme here, the intent is for the poles to be about 15 feet tall. Above the parking service?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
I didn't realize, so the parking services, this property is gonna be 6 feet taller than the abutting residential property.
I think that's what we just heard.
Oh.
Further questions?
Well, going back to landscape along that edge, then I'm confused on the height of the trees. Where will they be planted?
Yeah, Chris Golden, would you mind covering, so on the right side of the figure, you have the retaining wall and then some trees to the right of the retaining wall.
Yep.
Can you just help us understand the elevations that are going to be occurring there?
Sure. Those trees, I think we have them sized at 6 feet tall at installation, and they're pretty vigorous growers. I would say you could probably get 18 inches to 2 feet a year of height out of them. So they'll be, 10, 12 feet pretty quickly. And then probably max out around like 15, 16 feet, maybe a little taller than that.
They're starting 6 feet below the wall, right? So 6 feet to the top of the wall, and then it has to go more than 6 feet to provide any screening. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
you guys do it off the wall.
So day one, when they go in, they should be about as tall as the wall.
Do you have a sense of what the fully mature height on those are?
I can get that for you. I'm not sure what the, total maximum mature height is.
That's fine. So typically, when the planning board is looking at landscape buffers, we typically review it. At least the regs are kind of written for like a flat site, so that once things are planted, there is buffer that is already occurring. I think we just need to understand what this will look like if plantings occur, but there's no buffer at time zero. So we just have to have a sense of what buffer looks like time year +1 plus year 2, and something like that, I think, to be able to make a decision on this.
Yeah, I think maybe a section view would be helpful, because
Yeah.
you're gonna have the wall, you're probably gonna have a guardrail. You're putting light poles right on the wall or adjacent to the wall. I think that would just be helpful for everyone to see that.
Similar, we did that with, 129 Parker Street on the buffers. Did a nice cut.
Mark, does that sound reasonable to get a section view on that?
Yep, it's no problem.
So what I heard is the landscape guy said yes, but it's probably gonna be more of the civil guy putting this together. Okay, all right, okay. What else, guys? Anything else on this topic?
No.
More of a practical question, Chris. The landscaping, I don't really know how to describe this. The small landscape area between this property and the adjacent building right on the corner. There's this small little triangle with a handful of plantings. Is that, from a maintenance standpoint, is that practical to actually provide maintenance on? It just looks really tight to me.
Yeah, so everything back there is pretty low maintenance. It's just some grasses and some low growth sumac, which is both are pretty drought tolerant, pretty tough, rugged plants. We put them back there because it's usually a location where they probably won't get a lot of care. But they should do fine there.
And I know this question may sound like I don't think you do your job, but that's not the intent of this question. But I just, for the record, have you considered, I'm sure you considered, the amount of sunlight from the blockage of the buildings and the all of that consideration for the appropriateness of that type of planting there?
Yeah, the stuff on the north side of the building is all dedicated to, either full shade or, can tolerate shade throughout the year.
Chris, just a quick operational note here. Julia's running a map, reminding that everybody needs to raise their hand for her to unmute.
Yeah, understood. Okay, I think we're good on lighting and landscaping.
Thank you, Chris. Introducing Derek Roach from BAI, and ask for your hand over. And he's here tonight to speak about traffic and transportation related issues.
Oh, you want to raise their hand?
We're not taking public comments right now. Mark, who should we unmute there? Bill, can you see if we can unmute Derek, please?
Hello, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. I am Derek Roach, the traffic consultant from Vanessa and Associates. We did the traffic study for this development. I'm not sure, I don't know, as the board might know, the traffic study, because one of their comment, 98, was that the study was based on a previous site plan. So the program's changed for the development since the traffic study was done. So I don't know how much detail we want to go into the results of that analysis. That's up to the board. Happy to do it. I think the change of the site plan is a reduction in the overall impact of the site. So we could go over the analysis. I would suspect the updated study would be have essentially the same results. So that's up to the board.
Mark and Derek, maybe it'd be helpful just to give an overview of the traffic perspective here, you know, how many cars we should be expecting, and
well,
you know,
that's what I'm saying. The program changed from when the study was done. So there's an updated study that needs to be conducted, as well as some of the comments from the peer reviewer require an updated study, and a few other comments from the board require the study to be updated. But the biggest thing is that the program that the traffic study was conducted under was a different number of units, different number square footage of commercial, all of that. So the expected number of trips would be less than what is in the study, but I don't have what the exact numbers would be now. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's of value to go into the details of the study at this point, because there needs to be a new study submitted and then peer reviewed.
Chris, instead of talking numbers, could we just talk about what the updated study will cover?
Absolutely. So I can also talk about so the original study, we looked at 2 intersections. We looked at the Waltham Street at Powder Mill, and Summer Street at Acton and Main Street, as well as the 2 driveways for the study. That wouldn't change with the updated study. We did counts, so then we looked at the crash data. That wouldn't change. We found the 2 intersections were below state averages for crash rates. We found no fatalities at either intersections over the 5 years of data we looked at. We did look at site distances. I think we're gonna have to update that with the new study, in coordinating with the landscape plan, as well as a couple of the other comments from the board. And then we will conduct, as we did with this study, we'll conduct a capacity analysis of those intersections. We'll do a trip generation of the new site plan to determine how many trips it'll make. And it sounds like we didn't originally do a parking analysis, but it sounds like that is something the board wants us to look at, especially with this. It sounds like there's a shared parking consideration for this site that we'll take a look at with the updated study as well. And yeah, those are the main highlights of the study that we did before, and some of the aspects that we'll add to the new one. We, again, like I said, based on the comments from the peer reviewer, some of them are that we made some adjustments they want us to take away. We took some credits for the trip generation they want us to get rid of, but again, the change in the program is going to be such a significant reduction because the retail so much down from the study we originally did in this new proposal, and that'll really bring the trip gen overall for the site down. So we don't think the trip generation will be more than what was in this study. And this study had about 35 peak hour in the morning and 47 in the evening. So we expect it'll be less than that for the updated study. Yeah, happy to take any more direct questions.
Can you talk about what will be covered in the pedestrian circulation assessment that's
yeah, that was also one of the comments, was a complete street analysis based on the regulations. So we'll definitely add that to the study. We'll make sure we'll take a look at that pedestrians have up to standard accessible paths to and from the site. in that aspect. I know the bike room that we have, or not necessarily room, bicycle parking area is supposed to be, is my understanding, is accessible to public, not just our site. So that's a benefit to the pedestrian and bicycle circulation of the area. So yeah, we'll definitely add that as well. That's definitely something we'll be adding to the updated study.
And the assessment of existing pedestrian conditions on the sidewalks, what's the limit that you're going?
Yeah, so we do a review of the intersections and roadways of the study area. So that would include Powder Mill along to the site boundaries, and Waltham Street to the site boundaries, in terms of what we would be obligated to potentially fix directly. But we will assess the specific intersections as well. So we'll look at Summer Street and Waltham Street, in Acton and Main Street intersection, and their specific curb ramps, to see what's there, and see if there are any deficiencies. But I don't want to comment necessarily on what the team is going to commit to necessarily doing, but we'll definitely take a look at what's there, and if anything is deficient, we'll make comment of it in the updated report.
Derek, unfortunately, I think for you, there's a couple members of the board that are traffic engineers. So they're gonna take probably a good look at this, and probably have some good local advice. So if you wanted some good local advice on maybe how to approach this challenge, I'm sure these board members would be willing to share their thoughts on how to look at this from a way that's very helpful. Does that make sense?
Sure. We'll take any advice you guys got. Yeah. I mean, based on the regulation that I read, it sounds like, you guys are just looking at typical complete street pedestrian accessibility, but happy to take any local knowledge you guys have, for sure.
It's not just accessibility, it's connectivity. So
Right. That's right. Connectivity and accessibility, correct.
The pedestrian network analysis should go up to probably the next crosswalk. Because that's the connectivity. You shouldn't really stop at the property edge. And just.
Well, no, I definitely said we would analyze the other intersection as well. I just said I didn't want to comment on I didn't want to commit our teams.
No,
because I haven't talked with our team on any of potential improvements other places yet, because we haven't done that analysis yet. But we would definitely look at it. I said if we had any deficiencies that were along our property, then I was saying that we would definitely fix those. But I didn't want to say we would definitely fix things not on our property per se.
yeah,
That's all I'm saying, but we will definitely analyze it and say what deficiencies are there and so on and so forth.
Bill, is the next crosswalk back towards Acton Concord?
Yeah.
What's the best way to get your advice on how this study could be done usefully? Should we connect you with Jim, our peer review, and work that way?
Well, let's talk to a ped bike person and not a car traffic person.
Okay.
That would be the best.
Okay.
Whether it's our peer review or whether it's the applicant's one, let's bring in their ped bike person.
Okay, so
See what needs to be.
pedestrian bike analysis as well, someone that has background in traffic when it comes to pedestrian and bike. Pattern circulations and all that, not just vehicle.
Yeah, I'm sure both firms have stuff.
Yeah, right. So I think, yeah, so we look at traffic more holistically, consider vehicle, pedestrian, bicyclist, all forms of sort of transportation. So I think having analysis include all that is the way to look at this in a way that the board could understand it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. Derek, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that our traffic counts indicated very minimal pedestrian activity at the intersection there. Waltham Street and Powder Mill Road. Like I think it was like four pedestrians during the peak hour. So
And we will get to public comments later, but from the comments that I received by email, there's a handful of them have been about traffic. Pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, vehicle traffic. So I think the more robust we make the study, the more the study can look at what those concerns are and target it that way. I don't know what the results of the study would be, but I think that would address, at least topically address, what the concerns that I received already.
I can communicate that to VAI.
Okay. What else on traffic?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Derek, did you happen to get down and look at the site yet?
yeah, we've been there. Yeah.
Great. I just like to make sure that, it's just helpful. Any other comments, questions?
At what time did you, on the site?
How many times have you been on the site, Derek? It's just a board member question.
I've only been there once, but our team's been there a number of times.
Okay.
My project manager, Scott Thornton's been there a number of times.
So I think the board would like to make sure that there are observations at multiple times of the day. The traffic patterns for pedestrians are very different throughout the day. So I don't know how to capture that, but I think it'd help. The board would like it if we can make sure that we have lots of good observations on the site. Anything else on traffic?
I guess we wait till next time to do circulation and service vehicle access and all that stuff.
I would like to talk about that if that's okay, Mark. So I think it'd be helpful to talk about interior traffic circulation patterns. If your team is ready to talk about that.
Leave it to Derek, talk about it. Are you ready, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of where people walk from the cars to the elevators, I think that's probably more of the site guys there. I don't have a full grasp of the.
Yeah, that may fall into the architect's.
That might be more the architect's call.
Yeah, I mean, I could answer some questions on that if need be.
I think we would just like to hear generally what the both the vehicle traffic patterns are around and inside the site. Where the egress and access points are to the building. Where the bike rack location is and the access point there. And the dumpster, the dumpster location, the traffic pattern associated with that. And just a general vehicle traffic flow.
Sure.
Does that help?
Yep. So just the general traffic pattern, it's a two-way traffic from both Powder Mill and Waltham. So you can come in or leave through either entrance, circulate through. So it's not a one-way circulation, so it's a two-way traffic. The main entrance from the parking area itself would be under the building. It's kind of tough to see on the scale of this, but it's looking, if you want to zoom in on that right-hand side of the page a little bit. There's a main entrance. I'll just hold on one second. Yep. So where that is shown on the building called circulation, to the left-hand side of that, that's the main doors to the parking area. So there's ADA accessibility, and there'll be a ramp leading to a sidewalk, kind of that white space right there near that door. That's a sidewalk. So all the pedestrians would route through there up into that door to the kind of that circulation area, which would give you access to the commercial spaces, the elevator, and the stairs. The pedestrians out on Powder Mill would also be able to entrance through those 3 doors on the right-hand side of the building. And that would be either to the main circulation hallway or direct entrance to either of the commercial spaces. And then as far as the bike storage, that's over to the left-hand side of the page. And that's just an open area. There are no real walls in that area, so it'd be open to both the patio and to the parking area. So just kind of walk in, and it's a bike storage area in there. So it's kind of a free flow with no real restrictions to get in or out of there. And then the dumpster area is up to the top of the page, kind of to the top leftish of the screen right now, where it's a box with shown with a red outline of it. And that would just be the dumpster location up in there. It just kind of got cut off, so it's up to the top of the page. And depending on the trash truck that came in, they'd probably enter in off of Powder Mill with a front load, and then have to turn out and go back out onto Powder Mill. I don't believe that they'd be able to route under the building, but I'm not 100% sure on the heights of that garage. Typically they wouldn't be able to, but you know, I can't speak to that right now. I don't know the heights of the actual garage opening. So those are the couple items. I guess if there was more questions, I could try to answer those.
I was a little confused on the bike description. Sounded like the patio and the bike storage area is the same elevation? Is that
Yeah,
right?
they're all the same elevation. So the patio, the parking, and the bike storage are all at the same elevation. So not, you know, there isn't like a step down or up from any of those. They're all at the same height.
So the access to the bike storage area is through the patio?
It could be through the patio or through the parking area. You know, could you get there through either way?
Are there not cars blocking access to the parking area?
Yep, yeah. So if you go through, so you could get through, we might add a hatched area. That was one of the comments in the review comment. So we might add a hatched area. We'd have to look at that, how maybe you want to be accessed through the parking area if there's a car in the way and you didn't want to go around. So we'd either have to tell them they have to go around to the patio, or we may try to designated access path with some hatching or something like that.
About deliveries, UPS, DoorDash, all that stuff. The regulations require a dedicated area for that. I don't see that dedicated area.
No, we didn't show one yet. I know that we talked about that with the project team, and I don't know if we came up with a definitive solution of how we're going to show it, but it might be a standing area under the building. We did discuss that, and I think they're going to have that more defined on the next plans, unless anyone else on the team has some additional details. But I do know we talked about that, and they're just trying to finalize how that may look.
Residential, I think it'd be helpful for like move in, move out trucks too. It'd be interesting to see the auto turn for the trash truck as you were talking about. If it's gotta do a turnaround in that driveway, it might be a little tight.
Yep.
And is that short enough a distance that you don't have to provide fire truck? Right, that's just, it's less than, what is it, 150 feet? The truck just backed up. So
I have no idea.
I think that's
I
NFP,
remember earlier, I mean, they're not going under the building,
yeah.
but there is the issue of ambulance access. So we should hear something about that too from the fire chief.
The fire chief was in, we did this, ambulances were addressed too, but they were satisfied with the access the way it was, and they felt that the trucks, obviously not together underneath, but pretty sure the comments addressed ambulances as well. That was always, but we kind of started that before we wanted to.
Yeah, I just haven't seen any documentation on that, so. Be good if we had it.
Okay.
Just to capture this a little bit better, it's gonna be helpful to see a traffic, turn maneuver for the dumpster.
Yep.
It's going to be the bike storage area should probably have an access that doesn't have to go through a parking space.
I think an SU-40 or something like a U-Haul would be good to see
for
maneuver.
a traffic maneuver,
Yeah,
turning maneuver. Can you say that just louder?
yeah, like an SU-40 or something similar, like a U-Haul truck, someone might use to move. And I think it'd be helpful to see the ambulance as well.
And one last question about the pedestrian access. The pedestrian access to the core of downtown is just through that driveway entry, is that the deal? There's no dedicated pedestrian path to the sidewalk, it's just you go with the car?
Yeah, the pedestrian, well, they could access either off of, if someone not in the site, say he didn't drive there, would be either off of Powder Mill frontage or through the garage, or through the underground, yes. It would just be through the parking area.
It would make it a relative to our sort of complete streets in a way. The way that we look at traffic includes vehicle, pedestrian and bicyclists. This site plan or traffic patterns would be improved relative to that if pedestrian and bicyclists their priority was higher. This does look like a vehicle heavy site, meaning that it is designed primarily with vehicles in mind, which is mostly appropriate, but I think this project would be improved if we could see it also designed to be more pedestrian and bicyclist friendly. Does that make sense?
Yep, to me it does.
Yeah, so for just a small one, for example, when you exit the back side of the building, it looks like there's a landing area, which I assume will be concrete or something like that. And then there's not much access to anything else besides the parking spaces nearby unless you walk through the hashed area, which is designated for the handicap parking spaces. So I think that's a good example on how this is less pedestrian friendly than it could be. The handicap parking spaces, I see there are two. I think I heard you mention, or someone mentioned from the team, that there's going to be 3 based on the numbers. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think these numbers were based on the ADA regs, but then there was a local requirement noted in the Green's comments that one additional one would be required based on the local bylaw.
Okay. I'm thinking the intent of that, the other parking space should be more towards the front of Powder Mill. I'm looking at the traffic engineers next to me.
Well, Powder Mill frontage is the commercial frontage.
Right, the intent
You
is,
don't really want to bring them in the back door, they can come in the front door.
right. Yeah, so I think a handicap parking space, near Powder Mill would probably be the appropriate place to put it if we're looking at this from an accessibility standpoint.
Okay.
I'm not making a determination on that, but I think that's probably the best.
Yeah, because looking at that map there, right, you would have to come in from the back parking, go through the entire circulation, back out onto the street and then come in?
Yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
weird.
There's a door there.
Is there by the, you gotta go through the stairwell? Is that the deal?
No, there's one in the middle of.
There's one, right when you come in the door, I got you.
Well, there should be equitable access, as you guys know. Or I think at least the ADA people know.
Also,
you-
probably come up, and I have no idea what the answer is, but EV parking requirements with the building code, I don't even know which building code we use, and
Bill, you want to help us out? on
EV
that one?
ready versus EV real and all that stuff.
With the what, with the EV?
Does this project require, electric charging stations?
Back of the building.
What else on traffic and parking? Anything? Traffic parking?
Yeah, a number of different things, but I'll wait till the next iteration.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Mayor, can I ask about that transformer and what it's doing in the frontage?
Go ahead.
Can that transformer go somewhere else?
We could probably look to see if it could fit somewhere else. I think it wants to be pretty accessible, but we could look to see if there's any other options.
It's weird that that's the frontage of the site, is a transformer. but-
Vito, do you know the parking space widths here?
I think they're 9 by 18.
Do you know the lane widths here?
They're all 24.
Okay. That parking space on the inner corner looks challenging from a maneuver standpoint. Just something to point out. Right on the inside of the L,
Okay, yeah.
kind of diagonal from the dumpster.
And then also a reminder that we require a little extra width in parking spaces that are against walls and dumpster pads and things.
Vito, do you understand that comment?
Yeah, maybe I missed it in the bylaw. Is there anything that's a standard or anything to go by, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find it.
I think you need a couple extra feet if the door gets obstructed.
Yeah, you'll see there's a separate factor where we put, when you're adjacent to.
Otherwise, you gotta ask for a waiver.
Okay.
And Jim, I hope you're following along. If you haven't been, that's okay. When it comes to the interior traffic patterns and parking and things like that, is there anything that you thought would be helpful for us to discuss tonight based on most of the comments that were provided that you can recall?
I think we touched on a lot of them already.
Okay.
I know we commented on accessibility to the bike storage area. And, pedestrian accessibility just within the parking area. So I don't, off the top of my head, I don't have anything additional to add right now.
Okay, anything else on parking, please? Okay, have we covered
Yes.
what you wanted to cover?
Yeah, the next topic would be architecture, and we agreed to reserve that for the next meeting. While I have Jim here, can I ask him a question? Jim, are there various people within Green that my people should be contacting? And are you gonna arrange that? Are you just a genius in all of these things?
That's smart. Yeah, I have a whole team that's working with, the traffic engineer and, Lindsay Burger.
Can you send me your names or do it through Bill and I can communicate this to my people?
If you could go and email me
will.
or,
I have
ask me, and I can arrange a meeting. So, I'm gonna be the project manager, so I'm gonna be there always.
Okay.
And so I'm the point person. So if you wanna meet with someone, just come.
I'll send you an email when I get home and you can contact me and I can get things going.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Bill, would you mind, do you have the agenda back up by any chance? If not, I think I have it. I can look at it.
Are you done with this, Mark?
Yes, Bill.
It's the top one, I think. Okay, so I think we adequately covered numbers 2 and 3 just now. We did it in parallel. Except that, or actually 2 and 4. Bill, for item 3, did we get review from this from the police department? Do you recall?
No comment from the police department.
And
We did, it's asked based on. We did meet with fire already. I already have been in contact with them since. But we don't have anything in writing. In general, they were fine with the plan.
Okay.
We met with them in person, and I think, in the design, early in the design stage, but we had this. But I asked if she could provide something for the board about any of those just fire trucks.
Yeah.
and stuff.
I would prefer something in writing.
Of course.
What's the status of DPW's review?
DPW is, I think everybody.
And this, I think this could be a question for the applicant too.
DPW is a separate review process and they have already begun the review. They have not provided comments yet. But it is going simultaneously and as soon as we get any. Anything, of course, I'll pass on this board, but it is underway. I neglected to mention that. Let's talk about the other boards and committees. But yes, DPW is there any thing, Mark, that has come up with DPW at this point that or somebody met with him, I think, Mr. Carter, right?
Yeah, Adam and I both met him last week. We have to finalize the plan through Vito. Getting inverted and, those sorts of things. So. After Vito, we got the peer review and kind of focused on the peer review, and then after that, we were gonna do the DPW requirement. Get that.
And you're clear on that, how to get that, and then there's
Yeah.
a separate.
Wayne and Justin were very helpful, so.
They did say that they didn't think the size of the project they had enough supply, both sewer and water to supply the project.
Yeah, well, that was their thought originally, I mean, that's from before we came in, yeah, but they, hopefully, we don't problem with that, and then. According to them, they're good with it, but they have other stuff they wanna look at.
The reason I asked about DPW is to ensure that their review is occurring so that if we need to coordinate or add any conditions or to discuss any mitigation, then we can discuss it here, so you don't have to go open it back up later on after some type of decision. So we can just cover that next time as well. Are there any other departments in town that should have reviewed or will review this? The Board of Health probably doesn't.
Well,
assume.
yeah, everybody was asked to provide comments, all of the. I don't say minor departments, but the departments that, like which the necessarily here from. Have been providing copies of it, and asked. Sent comments if they had any, we had a few from the zoning board last night that was already, I think was already rolled in. And but nothing else at this point.
Okay.
The new reiterations, so maybe, of course, but in general.
And then on the development agreements, what, maybe this is for Lisa, the question's for,
Yeah,
if Lisa's still here. Maybe Lisa, this question's probably for you. What is the status of the DA, the development agreement, and what happens next?
Sure. So I've just received all the town comments on it, and so I have sent it back actually late today to Attorney Bobrowski. And then once they get another turn on it, it'll go back to the town and the board. And I think Mr. Chair would be ready for your board to have a look at it at your next meeting, so you can have some comments on it. And I also have to take it to the select board to have their comments on it as well. We're waiting on some more definitive comments from the DPW. Justin was waiting on the review that he's undertaking right now. Generally, they were okay with what was there so far, but he reserved his right to see the details.
Thank you, Lisa. Mark, do you have anything to add for the board on that?
No, I look forward to working with Lisa and we'll try to get as much done as we can before the next meeting.
Great. To both of you, I think it'd be helpful if the board had, a draft that's ready for board review. Obviously not too early because there's still some items to discuss, but it would be helpful for the board to have some type of draft before our next meeting so they can review it before we arrive, right? I would like to avoid having the board see it for the first time in the board hearing.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Chris, one thing I'd like to make sure we have for the records is some written confirmation that the project's in compliance with the regulation that requires the ground floor commercial to equal 15% of the building. And I know that the applicant has put together some numbers. I just want to make sure that somebody on our end says, yes, that's right, and that document just goes into the record.
On which one, for the 15%?
15% calculation, yeah.
Lisa, remember we had the meeting with Brett?
Right. So, Mr. Chair, through you, to Mr. Crenshaw's point, we actually had the building inspector review the calculations of the applicant, and I believe, Bill, we have an email to that effect, so maybe we can get that to the board.
Double check, I think we do.
I would also double check whether the building commissioner verified the calculation of the ground floor building space versus the calculation of the percentage of total. I'm not sure he did.
So I think the nature of this comment, Lisa and Bill, is just to make sure that someone on our team is also double checking the math that's provided as just part of our due diligence.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it might have been the building commissioner, but I think that's the request from the board, is just to ensure that our due diligence includes double checking.
We talked about 15%.
Yeah, in this case.
And I missed the second thing you got where you said
It was just a due diligence of checking the math on the 15%.
no bill left.
No, that was it.
Okay. I'd like to open up the public comment unless the board has anything else to add for tonight.
I have two concerns. First of all, could we be introduced to these four people in the front here and what their relationship is to the project?
Sure, I think that's okay, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, would you like to introduce
Sure, I'm Meredith Coakley. I'm one of the owners.
one of the owners? I see. And is this a previous company or a new company or what is it?
So this is my father and my brother, and
Okay.
then we're partnering with Adam for the first time. The three of us have done numerous projects throughout Natick and Wellesley.
And
say that
under what names?
We know Adam for quite some time too, so.
Okay, I saw the name Car Company on,
Car family, yeah,
Is that
that's
you
the
people?
three of us, yeah.
okay,
My name's Michael Carr. This is Matthew Carr.
thank you very much.
I unfortunately got married, so.
My other concern is that, and I will wait till the next iteration, but I have some very strong concerns about the entrance and egress of the property, both on Powell Mill Road and Walton Street. So I'll wait till the next iteration, but I do have some strong concerns, which I will avoid at the next.
Can, for their understanding, is there anything you can add to that? I assume it's about pulling in and out of the site.
Yes, I'm concerned, quite honestly, and very frankly, that your traffic analysis person was very, he was not strong at all. I didn't agree with his comments and I don't think he knows what he's talking about when he comes to that intersection. That's a tough intersection. And it didn't sound like to me that he had much experience in looking at the site. He was looking at statistics, not the site. So having been here in the Maynard for 65 odd years, I think I know that traffic pretty darn good, and you've got some problems on both ends that he didn't address.
Thanks, Jim. Anything to?
I agree with Jim.
Okay.
Well, I will communicate that to DAI. I don't know if you know the name Jeff Dirk, but.
Can you speak a little louder, sir? Okay.
Sure, I said I'll communicate that to BAI, which is the traffic consulting company. Their program, their managing partner these days is Jeff Dirk. Jeff is he's renowned as a traffic engineer in Massachusetts. So I'll communicate that directly to them.
Okay.
Bill, I would like to open it up for public comment, and I would like to start online if we can. So the instructions for public comments are, if you could just please raise your hand, and we'll call on each individual one at a time. Public comments will be allowed as town policy for 3 minutes. And then we'll take public comments in the room after that.
Okay. You ready?
Sure. So I'll recognize Leslie Bryant. You may need to unmute Leslie. Bear with us, Leslie. Oh, gotcha. She's in the red.
Keep going down. Okay. Sorry, Leslie.
Okay.
Very
So
good.
Hi,
in
Leslie.
regards- Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So in regards to the lighting, it's pretty well understood now that most pollination takes place at night, not during the day. And I'm concerned about the amount of lighting at night in the parking lot with this project. And I would really encourage that the developers use like a more orange type of a light bulb rather than something that's bluish and giving off a lot of light. And then also to be really to do their lighting in such a way that you're not contributing more to night light pollution. Lighting experts will probably tell you that a bright light is actually more dangerous because it blinds you, whereas a more orangey light is, I don't know, it's not as blinding to a person. It's actually safer not to have that overly bright lights. And I don't know why we don't have motion detector lighting in a project like this. Anyways, I'm just wondering if you can comment on how you're going to mitigate light pollution in this project.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, I will take the next public comment, Bill, if there are any. Can you go back to the screen by any chance? I wanted to see if anyone's raising their hand. Mr. Thomas Herbst is raising his hand. Bill, if you could ask him to unmute.
Hi, my name is Thomas Herbst. I live at 8-10 Potomac Road, which I'm abutting this particular project. I agree with Leslie and I agree with Jim as it relates to concerns, traffic and lighting. Because I'm going to be the direct abutter and the lights are actually going to be right along my border of my property. The other thing that I wanted to discuss is in relation to the actual retaining wall. The position of the retaining wall is actually in close proximity to my actual structure. As far as maintenance, I will be limited to very limited as far as accessibility with any type of lift or structure or driving structure in order to put a like a crane up in order to maintain my property. So that's one of my concerns. The other thing I'd like to see is more detail as it relates to the retaining wall and the height of the retaining wall. There were prior discussions about the retaining wall at other plans with other plans, and the height of the retaining wall. I know the height of the actual parking lot is going to be approximately 6+ feet, plus or minus feet. And then the actual retaining wall, what I'm hearing tonight is it's going to be 6 feet, but from my understanding in prior meetings, it was going to be approximately 8 feet in order to prevent someone from running over into my property. But I want to see the details of that. You know, I don't want an 8-foot wall. I don't want a wall, period. But if there is a wall, I'd like to see it pushed back so that I could actually manage my property. It's going to restrict my ability to maintain my property. So that's my concern. And the other thing I would request of the actual board is proper setbacks. I'm actually getting different dimensions as it relates to setbacks of an actual structure. I'm getting anything from the building commissioner of 10 feet, and in the actual ZBA bylaws, it could be anywhere between 0 and 5 feet and 15 feet. I just want to know where that actually is. I don't want to give up my accessibility between the property to maintain my property, which is very important, and nor do I want to see a wall. So, so that would be my concerns. And again, I'd like to see more detail as it relates to the actual retaining wall, which I think is going to be important. The other thing we're going to lose is because of the building, we're going to lose afternoon sunlight forever with the height of the building, and we're going to lose it in all of the rooms. And right now, you know, my kitchen is basically, we have a little breakfast area and it always gets afternoon sun there. That's gone. So those are the things that I'm concerned with, is natural lighting. The other thing is the artificial lighting is going to affect my direct property, which, you know, mentally it could affect our ability to, you know, want to live here anymore. So that's my concern. So
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you sharing your concerns. And Bill, we received written comments from Thomas as well that I believe you passed along to board members, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments online that I see? I see none. Any public comments in the room tonight? I think, Armin, you're the only member of the public technically that could provide a public comment. No public comments? Okay. Okay, so I heard, the comments I heard from Leslie were about lighting, light pollution, even light pollution particularly during the nighttime, and that there are other sort of, there's different hues that could be used to help with pollination. and plant growth and development and, to be very cautious about how we do their lights. And then, what I heard from Thomas was about concerns about traffic, about retaining wall and access to his property, that he asked for a spec of a detail of the wall itself and an understanding of what the proper setbacks are. And then he shared his concerns about sunlight and light itself from the building blocking his property. So if we could just make sure those get noted, Bill, and the board can have all that information for their consideration.
Okay.
And so I think that ends the agenda for tonight, Mr. Bobrowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I agree.
So actually, what I had on the agenda was about next steps. So can we take some time here just to talk about what happens next? And Bill, do you want to start us off on what should happen next, or should we allow Mark to speak on this?
Wow, yeah, I mean, I think we just want to ensure that there's an review time to make the most efficient use of scheduling and of offline work that can be done often. A lot of this stuff can be done offline. There's no reason to come, you can work offline with most of it. So I just say that we have been very cognizant that, sometimes when we're continuing a hearing to be most efficient, the board's gonna want time, the peer reviewers are gonna want time before the next hearing, so we just want to be sure we keep that in mind. We don't want to have, and I'm not suggesting at all this would happen, but it has happened in the past. We don't want to get something at the last minute and then have to be expected, to provide an analysis or something like that. I mean,
So to that point, we typically require, I believe, 2 weeks for peer review, so that the board can then receive comments and understand what peer review is that. And so I think there's a lot of good information and feedback shared tonight. Obviously, the big question is when to continue to, what date certain. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Bobrowski, or should we talk simply about a date?
I think it's simply about a date. I think the 14th, as we discussed on the phone this afternoon, Mr. Chairman, is pressing it. It's just 3 weeks from today.
I agree.
So I had asked, for those of you who don't know, I had asked whether or not we might schedule a meeting on the 21st, which is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I personally start looking on Wednesday, but I'm polling you to see whether or not that would work, or if you're going out of town. But I think that would give us 4 weeks. With my crew and Meredith and Michael are in charge of this, has been ordered to call James in the morning to get as much information as fast as possible exchanged so that they can move very quickly. I think 4 weeks would give us time. I know your next meeting is the 28th. And that seems like a little bit too much.
just for the record, I think, I don't know, Julie, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm unavailable on the 21st. Are you in town? That,
I am. I'm just not sure if I'm available for this meeting, but I can double check.
available, I'm sorry, she's available.
And he's not sure if he's available for this meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So.
Yeah, I can do it.
The request is for an off-calendar meeting on the 21st. And I guess the first question is, are you available and will you be willing to participate?
We do have a meeting on, we do have items on 28th already scheduled.
Is this instead of the 14th?
Would this be instead of the 14th, Bill, or do we have items scheduled on the 14th?
I don't think we have anything.
I'm pretty sure we do have items scheduled for the 14th, so this would be an addition.
We do? Okay.
It might be possible, Mr. Chairman, we've got 5 topics we're working with. I'm confident our architect can work with the peer reviewing architect to button up the architect. And that might even be doable by the 14th. I think lighting and landscaping are the next in the order of minor major. And there might even be some progress on those three things on the 14th.
I'm happy to,
Traffic and civil seem to be the major cleanup.
I'm happy to continue to the 14th because I agree, at the least, we could have a presentation on architecture and peer review. I don't see why, Jim, why we couldn't be ready for that. I believe peer review on architecture was submitted today, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then we could then regroup at that time. I'm not actually expecting a lot of the civil comments to be fully fleshed out by then. I just know the practicality of it.
Well, when we have to upgrade the GIAS too.
Right, which takes time.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to continue to the 14th and then we can at least cover architecture review and then take it from there.
I would add to the agenda optimistically, and I can tell you if it isn't going to work, landscaping and lighting.
I don't think we need to determine topics yet, but we just need a continuation date, right? Did I get
But I
that
will
right?
prepare those members of my team.
And you can just keep the, you know, the big great communicators, and probably know, they can let the board know and who. The point of contact and you know. Pretty good. Okay, so 14th it will be then, correct?
I can continue to the 14th, and then Lisa and Mr. Bobrowski, if we could just keep me posted on where we're at with the development agreement so that I know if we could bring that to the board on the 14th or not as well.
Yeah,
And if there's other
Mr. Chair,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I may not be, I actually have a conflict on the 14th, but so probably my partner, Adam Costa, to cover. And so if I'm not going to be here, I don't know that you want the DA available, but maybe we'll have it to you by then so that we could discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay, that's amenable, I think.
If you have, Bill, do you have an existing agenda for the 14th?
I don't have anything on it.
Okay.
At least as of now.
I have a triple conflict. So, but what I was hoping to do is, my other conflict is in Wayland, and that's not a big deal. And then I could scoot over here, but if you have something on the agenda that, and you put that first, I could probably do both. I think we start at 6:30 in Wayland. If you don't see me at 7 o'clock, then I'm driving over from Wayland. It's gonna be a pretty quick meeting.
We can also start a little later.
Yeah, I can.
Well, with design too, you know,
I can have Chris warm the seat till I get here.
What are we doing with 40 Summer?
Yeah,
what's that? I'm sorry.
Summer.
Is 40 Summer tonight, or is that getting kicked? to the
No,
14th?
we're gonna cover that next.
Oh, okay. All right.
well, that's tonight. That's tonight, right?
Bill.
I'm waiting.
Sorry, excuse me, Mike, please mute, please, thank you. So we can even start late, or would you? Or is that a request?
It's up to you. I think Chris will be largely introducing Ron, our architect, and I think you don't need me to do that. You can handle it.
I would hope so, yeah. Okay, I will make a motion to continue to November 14th.
At what time?
At 7 p.m.
I'll second that.
All in favor by hand, we'll continue to November 14th. That's 5-0, Bill, to continue to November 14th. Thank you, everyone, tonight.
Thank you.
And for
Thank you.
anyone that's online, thank you very much for your candid participation.
Yeah, let's.
Don't leave them for Bill, we'll make him clean them up later. I'm sure the PC downtown is still open if you wanted to get a beer. Contribute to the local economy. Okay, well, that's it. Okay.
Mr. Chair, for our Summer Street,
Yep.
Mr. Wells is on. I put everything on a power.
All right, I will open up the public hearing for 40 Summer Street. This is a petition filed by Mr. Adam Wells of 15 King Ave of Medford on behalf of Dominic Delapace of 40 Summer Street of Maynard. This is a request for just a very small limited site plan review. In accordance with section 2.6 of the zoning bylaws. Referencing essentially the exterior facade and changes that are proposed to be made to the exterior facade. Site plan review is required because in this case, it's in the central business zoning district. Mr. Adam Wells, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much for joining, and
We tried.
we appreciate your patience. If you could just introduce yourself for the record, it's required, and then if you're ready, you could just describe the changes that are going to be made.
Sure. My name's Adam Wells, and I'm specialized in stone masonry. And part of 40 Summer Street is structurally not sound. So we need to take down a part of the brick building, and also we want to add a ADA compliant wheelchair ramp.
To be clear, I asked, I have several slides here, but the building commissioner is unsure. And we thought to be safe because of the design, question of design. The building commissioner wanted to ensure that the board understood what was going to be altered here. So far as specifics, so far as the things, the compliance with the type of ramp and all this, that will be all handled at building permit stage. This is basically limited to design review, and I'll let Mr. Wells explain what he's planning here with each of the for each of the modifications in there. Okay. Can you see? Mr. Wells?
Can I share my screen?
So can you see ours, or would you rather share yours?
Oh, wait, let me see yours. I can't see yours now.
Oh.
I can see it. It's there. Would you rather share your screen though, Adam?
Just because I can't really see, it's a little blurry for me.
No worries. I can change the permissions on that, Bill.
Oh, okay.
Okay, try now, Adam.
Okay. So this is a picture. Can everybody see this?
Just give it a minute to load. Try pressing share screen again. It might have you might have done it at the same time.
You got me.
Not you, but it's coming.
It's slowing down.
Did that work?
Yep, there you go.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay, so this is just a picture of the building, and this bump out here is unsafe. It started to fall. They needed to call carpenters. Right now it's temporarily held up by like 2x4s and joists. But it needs to come down, and all we're basically going to do is take that down, and then like along the side of the main building, you will just keep it flat. Like, so the whole building will be one flat row of brick, and then instead of this big brick structure, we're going to put just a railing all around it to get up within code. So that's number one. The other thing is this it pulls up is the ADA ramp for wheelchair accessibility. Here it is. So this is a different entrance. This is East Summer Street, and then it's on the corner, and I don't think the other street has a name. I think it may be a
Adam,
pro-
I think you might have just shared your PNG instead of the entire screen, so you might just have to unshare and reshare if you're showing us a different item. So we currently see just the demo and remove brick bump out structure.
Oh, okay. Um.
We have it, we can pull it up too,
If you just go and unshare and then reshare, it usually works.
Unshare. Oh, there it is. New share. Did that work?
there we go. Okay.
Oh. Okay, now we see design drawings.
There.
Okay, so this is a different entrance of the building. And this is ADA compliant wheelchair ramp. So the steps are here, they go up front. But then if you bang a right and then pull a U and then go into the building, that's for wheelchair accessibility. So those are the two changes we'd like to make at this this particular building.
The brickwork, I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
The brickwork where you're removing the little vestibule there, so basically it's gonna just be matching a linear section there, so it should be aesthetically the same all across, right?
Correct. The brick, yeah, once it's gone, the brick will look all the same all across. The color of the mortar might slightly be different, but that's about it.
And so I understand you're building the stairs and the ramp, or at least on the facade side of it would be out of brick.
I'm sorry, are we talking about the brick structure or the wheelchair ramp?
Okay, yeah, maybe just walk me through what type of material you're using for the sides that would be visible from the sidewalk.
Well, on Summer Street, you basically, I'm just taking down the brick and putting up a wrought iron railing. And then around the corner, you would see this other entrance with the ADA compliant ramp out of concrete, built out of concrete, and also iron railings.
So the ramp is gonna be poured concrete with metal railings around the edge?
Correct.
What type of railing system? Is it like wrought iron or other types of metal?
Well, I had planned on wrought iron.
Okay. And this, do you have to, I assume you have to pour new steps as well, is that correct?
There are existing steps there. No, yeah, we would have to pour new steps, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna be removing and then constructing new steps, also concrete pour?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so if I understand this, the materials are concrete, some brick, and then the railings will be wrought iron?
That's well, we're not adding any brick anywhere, but
Okay.
we're taking brick down, and then we're adding concrete and wrought iron, that's correct.
Okay, and do you have to do any sidewalk work, like pour a new concrete pad or any type of panels on the sidewalk?
No, we just need a sidewalk permit and, you know, it's closed sidewalk, please cross here, those types of signs.
Okay.
So it'll be safe.
Any other questions from the board?
For that, the ramp on the side, is there any treatment of the facade? So it's just not plain concrete? Is it gonna be textured and colored like brick, or is it gonna be landscaping in front of it to obscure it? What's the deal?
Currently, it was just concrete. It's not in the most visible spot, but we could add something to it if we wanted to make it look nicer.
Yeah, it's pretty, from my part of the world, it's very visible, so
What would you like to look at?
not concrete.
Okay.
I mean, even if it's just shrubbery in front of it or something, I mean, just to match
Yeah,
the
we-
stuff. Off the
We
street.
can veneer the concrete and nice, look nice, the sides look very nice.
Something simple, it just doesn't look.
Chris, where's some?
Where's,
I'm off on, I don't understand where
This
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 is.
is the road down into the parking behind.
I'm sorry,
CVS. This is the road going down into the parking area,
you know,
so it's
Yeah.
right at the top there. There's a little grass area, somebody usually
so they're
parks there.
gonna eliminate the side entrance completely.
No,
Off
no,
of Summer Street.
they're adding a, oh,
Well, I mean, it's gonna,
well, there's two entrances, one on Summer and then one on that driveway down to the parking.
okay.
That's correct.
And the handicap ramp is on the driveway down to the park.
Hmm.
I do have a question about the Summer Street entrance, which you're taking away the brick, which I assume there's the same brick behind it. But what's happening to the concrete sign that's in that facade? I don't even know if it's like real or
The one is.
whether it can be saved or relocated and placed on the new facade or given to the historic commission or is it even, you know, is it only an eighth of an inch deep and it can't be saved? I don't know.
did a little bump out?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what.
So question to the applicant, what's happening to the Knights of Columbus?
Okay.
And he's gonna build.
Concrete.
So there's nothing on the
Sign there.
Yeah.
The ramp will go right.
Is that savable?
No, it's gonna go this way and then that way,
Hmm.
right? So, it's just gonna drop this
Just
way.
removing the bump out.
Okay, and the stairs go straight in.
Madam Chair, question.
And the ramp will be to the right of it,
Okay.
right? So, here's the building, here's the entrance,
Mhm.
right? It's gonna be stairs here and the ramp will be this. Right,
Access from here.
no, it'd be accessed, I think, from here. You go this way on the ramp and then.
No, double ramp.
Does that make sense?
That's all.
Adam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, there was a question from the board about the panel of concrete that has the lettering in it,
Yep.
right?
Nice Columbus.
Is that salvageable?
Yes. It's not, it wouldn't be easy, but yeah.
What is the paneling say?
Nice to Columbus.
Yeah, there's a packet next to the
Yeah,
board.
next.
I would just,
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's real pain to reinstall it on the new facade, fine, but I might check with the historic commission or something and see if they want it, and if they say no, then okay. Got it.
Well, that's mainstay of made it for all the time I've been here.
What, the sign?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to see the sign moved to the new facade.
I mean, it identifies an historic building. Well, historic, if I'm my term,
Yeah. Well, that's historic.
but I mean, it is something that is totally maintenance. One way or the other, we should have someplace for it.
We can try to salvage it, if you want. It's not I'm assuming everybody knows this is not the Knights of Columbus anymore, and you can use it somewhere else. If that's the goal, we could give it a shot.
What do you want? Do you want to make it a condition that it gets reused in the project?
I'd like to see it that way, yeah.
I said I did.
It's germane to that building and not any other building.
Bill Nemser, what do you think?
Well, I think that it could be, assuming it could be this odd. Perhaps be worked in, well, could be worked in somewhere else, maybe in the revision.
I don't know if I want to make it a condition. project. There's a lot of reasons why it might not be salvageable. But I'm willing to work with Adam offline to see if we can salvage it. Maybe that's the thing to do.
Yeah, we can try. I'm in.
What do you think? Yeah,
I think we should stay with it. There must be stuff like
I mean, we
that.
can make it a condition if it does, if it becomes practically infeasible, maybe it crumbles,
Yeah.
for example, as we take it off, you know,
Right, that concrete's very old. It might crumble.
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I expect it will.
but we can try.
I just don't like to see it roll. That's all.
Okay, what else, guys? Anything else? Okay, so I think, Adam, just to summarize the feedback, some type of decorative siding to the concrete pours would be very helpful. Some type of stamp or facade.
They call it veneered, I think.
A veneer is fine, something like that, something that works with the building itself. And I think that's really the only feedback from the board, Bill. Okay,
Okay, we're gonna, well, what about, you mentioned the shrubs, and is it? I don't.
Is there any opportunity to landscape at all? I can't tell.
On the, not on the Summer Street side, but the other street side, there will be some grass there that you could, plant flowers or something. If you wanted, make it a mulch bed.
Can I keep it there? Why does that have to go? Chris,
I don't know.
I mean, you're gonna take away the portico, but not the corner.
Right.
Leave the corner the way it is.
Yeah. So I think from the planning board's perspective, the only item is the veneer.
Okay.
I have a question about the construction and you mentioned closing the sidewalk. I would like to make sure that those 2 parking spaces are used to reroute the pedestrian flow, because the crosswalks don't work for getting around that, because there is no crosswalk down at the,
Oh, there's no crosswalk in front of that.
yeah. But you got 2 parking spaces, and you got 8 feet, so you should be able to keep the pedestrian flow going past it. I don't know why you'd have to shut it down, otherwise.
Right. Well, I think that's for the feedback for the building commissioner. We would,
DPW, really.
Yeah, DPW,
Right.
it'd be helpful to not shut down the side. It'd be helpful to continue access for pedestrians, with some safety traffic set up, so that they can walk in the parking spots. So that the sidewalk isn't closed down during construction.
Okay, that's a possibility too. Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Now, what did you want to try to do about what did you want to try to do about the panel, the concrete panel? Just try to salvage it, as he pulls it down?
I don't know what to do with it. I can't instruct them to use it on their project.
No.
I can't ensure that it's gonna be used by another entity.
I don't know how to give him.
I don't think it's part of the decision. I think we can just handshake, say, let's try and see if the historical commission or someone else wants to use it.
Okay. So you let us know if they could.
Right, but we should only try if someone else wants, right?
I guess so.
I can take it out and say, well, here you go.
Right. No, I agree. So what I'm saying is I don't want a part of the decision, but I will talk and we'll work with Adam to see if anyone else wants that or if it can be used in any way.
Okay.
And if it's not salvageable, then it gets junked.
I think in order to, if it is salvageable, we will need to get a crane there and police detail.
Oh,
Yeah. Right. That's why I don't want to make it part of the decision. But, so, anything else? All right, I make a motion to approve the site plan with the condition of the veneer as described.
I'll second that.
All in favor by hand? 5-0. Okay, Adam, that's all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Wrapped up the decision and that, get it, out and.
Okay. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, guys.
Hope you feel better.
Thanks.
Is that it, Bill?
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add for tonight?
November 15th, I'm gonna send out, that's a Powder Mill Road,
Thank God we didn't put another meeting on the 21st.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
3 weeks.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay, good. So we have the 14th, the 15th, and then the 28th for November.
yes, we have that. My goal is I got the comments back for the firearms. Which I'm gonna go ahead and incorporate those in for the firearm sale. And my goal is to have. I'm gonna try to get everything done in the next week, and what I would like to have is a draft firearms bylaw circulated to everybody. The ADU is gonna be done next. Rick said he'll have it in the next couple of days. So when I get the firearms, what I'll do, I'll send it to Lisa. Review, and I'll send it to everybody here. Because we're gonna wanna get it posted, we're gonna put it on 28th. We met, just for those of you who might not know, we went with the Rod and Gun Club, we went with the police, we met with. Everybody we could think go on it, so it's pretty good on that.
What's the general purpose?
Well, the general purpose is, right now, firearms fall under retail, basically. And they want to have their own category, and the zoning board was.
Or like dog kennels,
Like what?
like dog kennels have their own category, right?
Exactly.
Like
And,
fast food restaurant or something.
There was some concern, it was, the zoning board asked, the board to take a look at it, and we've had Chris and, a member of the zoning board been working on it. So far as the actual, bylaw itself, I find it very similar to the marijuana one, kind of. Same basic idea that we did for recreational marijuana. I don't think, I think it's very practical. For everybody, I don't know why anybody would be upset with it.
My goal is that I think it's appropriate to get it in the table so that it has a use and it requires a special permit for the use, like a lot of different business activities do in town. And it'll be zoned similar to other. I mean, there's not a lot of similar businesses, but practically speaking, it'll be zoned similar to other sort of activities in certain districts.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And then I'll get the ADU as soon as if they get it back, we'll do the same thing with that, we'll get it around. And we're ambitious with our 28th goal, and I'll do my best to keep us on there. But, we're supposed to be getting the director in and which will be a help. And but it won't be for a while here. And
It's a director of
mass, replace it, Megan, not even replace Megan, but the Megan, the job, which we. See, the thing with Megan was that she was able to kind of fill. Some of the economic development stuff that I do. And a couple of other roles, and so that'll be going, and but we're keeping up, but it's we're going.
Thanks, Bill. Jim, would you like to do the honors?
I'd be happy to. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we close tonight's meeting.
Thanks, Jim. I'll second it. All in favor by hand? 5-0 to close.
That was.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.